Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining everybody for another Tuesday discussion. Here on Tuesdays, we do like to respond to questions and comments we get either on Instagram, YouTube, or from our wonderful Patreon community. Love y'all so much. Now, for today's discussion, gosh, we're getting something interesting here. So, an astute viewer has essentially called us out for doing more positive reviews than negative reviews. I do agree with that comment, but I also think there are reasons behind it. Now, the other question that came behind that after my latest top 10 list was the fact that if you look at the year overall, it does look like a really, really good year. So is 2024 a standout year or is something else going on? So I want to answer those questions as we get into it. And then I'm also going to break down by the end of this video the Bardstown Silver Oak and the Bardstown Small Batch Stay Finish that fits within the context here. So thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. All right. So for today's video, I did pour a little bit of a dram to enjoy with everybody. And cheers to Tom over there at the Bourbon Jerk. Traded me this Glen. I will cherish it, buddy. So let's bring up the slides here. This will help me out here as I walk through it. Are the scores higher in 2024? So the average score of all the reviews done in 2024 are higher than they were in 2023. And when someone pointed that out, it made me think about that a little bit. Like, yes and no. So the one thing that I want to be the backdrop of all this is if you go back to our goals of 2024, it was to spend less money on whiskey. Now, I can't say I've abided by that so far. I'm pretty darn on par with 2023. But in general, though, I will say that the quality of the whiskey that I have bought in 2024 is higher. Now, whether that is because the whiskey coming out in 2024 has been better or I am more discerning in my purchases is up for debate. I think I am making better choices. Now, if I make better choices and I stop buying whiskey just to review the whiskey, then the average score should get higher. But I still want to expose all the brands that we're highlighting here. I mean, these are the brands that we're in love with when you see our top 10 list. But once again, not doing a very good job of spending less money on whiskey. Pretty sure I'm on par with last year. I actually might be above last year. The one thing that has been a very negative on the spending habits, by the way, is us doing our own barrel picks because I end up buying multiples of those, despite one of the goals not being to bunker whiskey. When you are doing your own barrel picks, it's pretty hard to resist that. So to expose it a little bit here, I did do a breakdown of all the scores and did some groupings of those scores just to bring more context to this conversation. Now, thus far, only 2 bottles have been 90 plus. Now, it is extremely hard to rate 90 plus in our scoring system. It pretty much means you're absolutely in love with the whiskey and you're just looking for imperfections. But then 17 whiskeys so far have graded between 89 and 86, which then means there's very stiff competition to be in our top 10 list this year. 32 bottles rated between 85 and 81. I actually think this is where that factor of trying to spend less money comes into play. It's essentially we're hunting bottles that we're pretty confident are going to be in the 80s when we're putting our own money to it. 9 bottles rated between 80 to 76, and 90 bottles rated 75 or less. Now, one of the things that we will do by the end of this video is highlight 2 of those bottles in the 75 or less, not to just point them out as, I don't know, we're indifferent about some of these whiskeys. When we do point those things out, I don't like getting negative. I like to smile. We all know that. But I do like to have a balanced point of view, and we've been so positive throughout the year that maybe it needs that a little bit. One thing I will point out there, and I think this plays into a whole lot of it and plays into the overall goal of spending less. The average price of a bottle that is scoring 80 plus right now is $95. There is a lot of competition in the whiskey market right now, and you can see that on that average price. It does make it harder to spend over $100 on a whiskey, knowing what great whiskeys are existing right now, especially between the price point of 70 to 100 specifically. So, what we're going to get into today is a breakdown of 2 bottles that are actually somewhat at the bottom of the rankings. Now, one of them, I've actually got the small batch stay finish poured in the glass right now, and we can do a little bit of a live tasting, though I won't lament on it too much. But 2 of the pours that I was disappointed in, though very happy to review. Thank you to a special friend who provided me the chance to review these by leaving these at my house. What we're going to go through today a little bit is going to be the Bardstown Silver Oak and the Bardstown Small Stay Finish. Now, the intent of this is not to zero out these specific bottles, but it is to bring a balance to things. And if nothing else, show what turnoffs exist when it comes to the channel, when it comes to the scores, and when it comes to the things that we're looking for. So, with these scores, I did give the Silver Oak a 75. We won't go through a whole tasting on the Silver Oak, but in general, if you were to break down this mash bill, it's not actually on this bottle, but I think about 25% of this mash bill was Tennessee and Georgia. And I think that plays into it a little bit with the scores that are going on here. It's simply not my flavor profile, and the Cabernet finish didn't do enough to overcome that. And strangely, the base of that Old Turkey ish mash bill didn't overcome that either. So this one was a bit underwhelming, especially for the price, thus the score of a 75. Now, with the small batch rye, this one was a bit more divisive when I was talking to people about this. With the small batch rye, some people, or the small batch stay finish, sorry, I said rye there. With the small batch stay finish, some people do like this pour. So I do caveat the fact when I say I gave it a 68, maybe it is my flavor profile. I'm beginning to think I'm a bit sensitive to the Georgia that can pop up in some of these batches. So with this mash bill on the small batch stay finish, it is 48% of the Georgia 8-year. Now that mash bill has popped up in other Bardstown releases, particularly some of the Discovery series between batch 8 and 9, I believe. I'm similarly divisive on those. It's also 26% of the Bardstown 5-year, which is their 18% rye, 20% Kentucky 4-year, and then 6% of the Kentucky 12-year. So they keep kind of using some of these similar batches across the releases of the Discovery 12, the Silver Oak, and this stay finish. Now, this stay finish is meant to be a distillery-only release, I believe. So let's get into this one a little bit. I won't highlight things too much, but we'll get a little bit of a quick tasting here. Cheers, everybody. Yeah, I think that's it. The Georgia just on the nose. I'm blaming the Georgia. Maybe it's not the Georgia. It just comes off very, very crafty, which can be a turnoff for me. The stave finish part of it is also not coming through. It reminds me less and less of that triple stave finish cast strength that was a distillery release as well. All right, let's get in for a taste. I'll tell you what, that wasn't a bad taste. A lot of fruits going on, even ranges into melons, which is always an interesting fruit range. On the finish of it, get more of the stay finish in general. Still, though, not digging it. I guess it leans sour in some ways versus the sweetness is what I get. I think that's the thing that kind of gets me in the end. There, there's just a sourness to it. So this one is not my profile. Tell you what though, even being for 94 proof, man, it's kind of rich and oily for 94 proof. I kind of forgot it was 94 proof until just now. That part of it's all right. All right, one more sip, see if I have anything else. Ah, there's just a sourness to the fruits that really bugs me starting mid palate into the finish. And that is ultimately what generated some of the scores. Just something that I would probably mix with, then drink neat. And the price on this one, what, it's like 75, 80, 80, 85, something around there. So that's the part that gives me a little bit of trepidation as well. So that lends a little bit of context here when it comes to the reviews and everything going on behind the scenes. I'll be quite frank here. It's hard to review things that don't make me smile. So that is also why you get some positive reviews week after week. Now you just have to draw the line on how positive you're willing to go to buy that bottle and your own price point and what's available in your area. So we do try to highlight a lot of distilleries that may or may not be widely distributed, but week after week, I think there's going to be something in our top 10 that you're going to appreciate. So hopefully that answers for the questions for today. Thank you for joining today, Whiskey Friends. If you got any other questions, let us know in the comments right here, and we'll catch you on the next Tuesday discussion. Goodbye, everybody.